Hello and welcome back to the Candid Thoughts Podcast. This is your host, Isabelo Pasquale. And on today's 7th Golden Nugget, I'll be discussing using misfortune to your advantage. A lot of my fan base for the Candid Thoughts Podcast are very entrepreneurial, and they're into the self-development space and bettering themselves, becoming better human beings. And they're very intelligent. So a lot of you might be familiar with Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. His 10th law, it discusses avoiding those who are misfortunate and unhappy. His reason for that is that sentiment is infectious. So negativity, it begets negativity, which I agree 1,000% in that regard. Now, for those of you who are in the business space or in life, you may have a plan and things don't always work out the way you intended it, or just it falls through. That's life and business. That's with everything. So, in those circumstances, for those of us who are not grandfathered into companies or have family money or just became really lucky, we have to deal with setbacks and obstacles. Now, I agree that mindset is very important, and a lot of the self-development and coaching space will say mindset is the only thing that matters. Well, when you run an actual business, a commodities-based or service-based business, you deal with competition, you deal with overhead, hard costs. There's logistics that you have to deal with. It's not just you have an idea and you have very little overhead and you just create a product and you sell it for $5,000. Maybe that's a little riff on the coaching space. I digress, as I'm somebody who has experience with actually operating and owning commodities and service-based businesses. You deal with bidding wars, for example, with different clients. So that's hectic, and it doesn't always go your way. Now, if there's an obstacle that's out of your control, here's what you can do. You have to reframe any obstacles or any handicaps, be them fiscal, political, religious, racial, or whatever. These are actual factors in business. A lot of people who have never had misfortune, they will plateau. They've had comfort and they get bored, and they can get into very vicarious situations. There's somebody I know personally. He's a trust fund baby. He also has he has a personality disorder, but aside from that, he has addiction issues, and he has these grandiose ideas, and he's prone to manipulating people to get his way. And that's what a lot of people do. And that's what I discussed in my last episode. You can tell where you have to differentiate a person who has their best interests or if they want to manipulate you. But in this case, my point is that he plateaued. He had everything he ever wanted. He had women. He had family money. He had people giving him free stuff just because they wanted to be associated with him. And what happens? He's in and out of rehab most of his life. He's conned people. He's an addict who's in and out of rehab. So whatever. You can't really rely on him for anything. But my point being is, if you're dealing with obstacles and handicaps, you can maintain the belief that I have a target, I have a trajectory, and I'm going to work towards that. I'm not bored. I'm not bored because I have A, B, C, D objectives. It's not just one thing. I'm focused on accomplishing A to get to B, to get to C, to get to D. And D requires money from A, which in the real world, you have to deal with money and finance, especially if you're looking to raise capital for your business venture. So for those of us who aren't from such spectacular backgrounds or have these resources readily available to us, we have to pivot, or let's say certain things don't go our way and we have a plan. Now, a lot of people may have this defeatist mentality that they resort to, and they may concede and say, oh, woe is me, or I'll just get a desk job and be a desk jockey, for security, work for the government, as a lot of people have done, and they've provided for their families for generations. And I have much respect for people like that, including my own family. Now, for those of us who are ambitious, who are dreamers, who are working towards our goals, building our business systems and, pursuing our passions and our projects, when you deal with an obstacle or certain handicap, be it, fiscal, or the market changes, or there's a political situation which it changes the trajectory of your industry. Like, for example, with my production business, there's the SAG-AFTRA and the WGA strikes right now. A lot of the executives are unwilling to pay reasonable, livable wages for these professionals. And that's what the whole strike is about. And I'm a pro-union guy. My dad has been in the union for over 20 years in his industry. And he was able to provide for his family. You have to leverage those handicaps, those obstacles in your way, and reframe the circumstance and say, hey, this isn't working my way, but you know what? I'm going to, in order to accomplish B, C, and D, I have to get to A. A requires a certain task, or let's say maybe I'll pivot into a different industry, in commodities or whatnot, and then I can build that business system, make a lot of money, and then I can reinvest, which is the ideal, but that's not always the case for a lot of people. So you have to audit yourself and say, I'm going to leverage my misfortune or my handicaps, these financial handicaps, or let's say you're in a sales position and you're dealing with people of a certain demographic and they have a political affiliation and whatnot. And since, for example, you're a minority business owner, and then in certain circles, because you are a minority, regardless of your service or your product, they may have that confirmation bias and say, hey, he's woke for being brown. And I'm not really a guy who uses, that racial card, as I'm mixed race and whatever. I'm black, I'm Asian, I'm white, so whatever. So that's not how I see the world. But a lot of people, they live under those constraints. So you have to overcome that confirmation bias. And then you have that handicap right there. That's one handicap, the racial handicap. You say, hey, I've got a charming personality. I'm sexy as hell. I have great services and products. And I'll leverage that, win them over, get the deal. That's what you do to overcome that confirmation bias and that handicap. Other circumstances, let's say the market is becoming more vegan, or a demographic is literally dying out from old age, or they have gout, they can't eat it. Now I'm using these anecdotal examples because a lot of people can relate with that. But yes, mindset is very important, because then that can regulate your belief systems. You have positive belief systems, so you're encouraged to keep pushing forward, maintain this positivity. Now, if you have a negative mindset, you drown. But going back to the point of Robert Greene's 10th law, if you happen to be in these circumstances where you've had, some misfortune, you say, hey, I've got these obstacles. I'm going to leverage my handicaps. I strengthen those areas where I'm not strong. I develop my core competencies and I improve them. And I just keep going and I get better and better. Now, for those of us who don't have those extraordinary circumstances, and we have to build from scratch, and we don't come from money, we can appreciate the struggle, and we can appreciate not having all these resources, because if we had all the tools on the woodbench, then we would have no creativity. But when you're in a state of deprivation, then you can say, hey, let me leverage such and such handicap, and then let me use these resources and tools available to me, or maybe I can barter to get something, or I can trade whatever, or there's a number of things you can do, but you can accomplish the goal to make it happen. Or I can't afford my dream, so I have to work towards certain goals like this right now. A, to get to B, to finance. C, to do D, which is the goal. That'll keep you focused. And you're never bored, so you don't have a tendency to go on a bender or do stupid shit. Like today's episode was brought to you by DCG Elite. For all of you who are interested in Forex and trading, DCG Elite is comprised of experienced traders who walk you through the process. And it gives you a community. We'll give you tips on how to read the markets and trading signals. So check out DCG Elite. The link is in the description below. And sign up for the 7-day trial. Thanks for tuning in, folks, and stay vigilant. Leverage your misfortunes for your benefit. And don't fall into that victim frame. Keep pushing forward. And as you know, I have a lot of people saying this. We stake our claim, we take what's ours, we'll have what we deserve. That is a mantra that my tribe uses and has been using for several years. And I made this mantra based off of Emile Coué, who was a French psychologist from 100 years ago. He wrote a book, and I mentioned this on another Golden Nugget episode from a few years back. A positive mantra can keep you moving forward. So again, I'm all about maintaining a positive mindset. I'm 100% down for that. But just because you're in a misfortunate circumstance, don't invalidate yourself. Just keep pushing forward, maintain that positivity, leverage the circumstances, and you can win. Let's keep fighting, folks. We stake our claim, we take what's ours, we'll have what we deserve. Talk to you soon.